Anushka, so Talha's just joining now, and I think we can wait for more participants to join as well. Maybe about give them about 5 to 10 minutes and then start. Does that sound okay?
Sure, ma'am.
Lovely.
We'll wait.
Sounds good. Anushka, I think we can get underway now.
All right, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Today's session is organized by Cutting Edge, the Surgical Society of Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, with the aim of helping students explore opportunities in pursuing surgery in the United Kingdom. I am Anushka Shivatsan, a second-year MBBS student at Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, and a member of the Educational and Skill Research Department of Cutting Edge. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to SurJourney, a talk on pursuing surgical residency in the UK, an event that brings insight and inspiration stemming from the experience of our very own alumni. To guide us through this journey, we have two distinguished speakers who once walked the same corridors as we do today. Our first speaker is Dr.Adithi Shankar, Clinical Fellow in Kidney Transplant and Vascular Access Surgery at Barts Health at the Royal London Hospital. She is also a proud alumnus of Cutting Edge, where she led as president in 2018. Her journey from Manipal to London is a remarkable example of determination, adaptability, and surgical passion. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome.
Thank you, Anushka. Too flattering, too flattering.
Next, we have Dr. Talha Ahmed, higher specialty trainee in hepatopancreatobiliary or HPB surgery at the Northwest Deanery, UK. During his time at KMC, he was head of the Educational and Skill Research Department at Cutting Edge. His career path reflects the excellence in clinical training and academic pursuit that defines our community. Good evening, sir.
Hello, thank you everyone, Anushka. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm having a really tough time with IT today, but you're really kind with your introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're incredibly fortunate to have both of them here today to share their experiences, challenges, and advice on navigating the path to a surgical career in the United Kingdom. Without further ado, over to you, Dr. Adithi and Dr. Talha.
Okay. So before we get underway, I'm just going to get this technicality of sharing my screen out of the way. Where are we? Strange. Anushka, you're going to have to let me share my screen because you are the organizer.
All right. Yes, I will get on that right away.
No worries. Take your time.
I'm sorry, Aditi. This is supposed to be my job, but then my laptop gave up on me.
Welcome to the NHS, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
No worries. If that is not possible, Anushka, what I can do is I can forward the presentation to you. And if...
Oh, you're a present. I think you have done it.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Lovely. Let me get on that.
Teams is a little unfamiliar to me as well, but I went over the control panels today, so I hope it's working now.
Yeah. Is everybody able to see all of this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Adithi, and the whole purpose of us organizing this with Cutting Edge is to essentially give back to Cutting Edge. This session, I don't want to call this a talk. This is not going to be didactic by any means. It's going to be a two-way street. I know you guys have a lot of questions, and there are some things that we also want to get out of the way. So this is going to be a session discussing how surgical pathways into the UK work, because a lot has changed since we did med school, and I don't know how much of a sought after pathway the UK is at the moment. But if it is not, I feel that it should be. And that's the reason why we decided to organize this entire session, so that we can clear any potential doubts that you have and sort of re-establish this as a good pathway to establish your surgical career in a country other than India. So I'm gonna hand this over to Talha to sort of introduce himself.
Yeah. Thanks, Aditi. So, yeah, absolutely. The main reason why we wanted to do this is because there's a lot of misconception about how to enter, and if and I personally didn't have guidance to figure out my route and pathway into the UK. So it's always better if somebody sort of shows you the way rather than you figuring it out yourself, and you do feel or go through hurdles and things like that. So, a little bit about myself. I am an MBBS alumni from KMC Manipal. I was 2012 batch. I passed out in 2018. I was deeply interested in surgery, and I joined my post graduation in general surgery in KMC Mangalore. Again, it's sister college. So I've been a sort of Manipal boy from the start. I passed my Royal College exams a year later after I passed out of PG, and that was unfortunately sort of ridden with COVID, and things had been really difficult during my PG time. Anyway, so after that, I started applying for jobs. I got into a non-training post in the middle of nowhere in UK by the place called as Barrow. It's dead set in the middle of nowhere, but I really liked that place, and that sort of that's essentially how I started my UK career. And then I had applied for training, and I am essentially a trainee at the moment, specializing in HPB. So the picture on the right is just showing you the different hospitals I worked in. The one in the bottom left is essentially my first hospital in Barrow. And now I'm currently in the Northwest Deanery. So the UK has this deanery system where you get rotated through different hospitals in a region. So I'm in the Northwest, which is the Greater Manchester area, and I worked at Blackpool, Blackburn, and I'm currently in Lancaster. So that's a little bit brief about myself. I think Aditi is on the next slide.
Yeah, so to tell you more about myself than what Anushka has covered very well. I am also a graduate from KMC Manipal, the 2014 batch, and I was also, like Talha, very interested in surgery. In fact, Talha was a very big motivating factor for me to take up surgery because he was my senior in Cutting Edge, and that's how both of us met. So Cutting Edge surgery were all very close to my heart, which is why I ended up making the very questionable decision of joining my post graduation during the peak of COVID, where I joined Madras Medical College, then finished my 3 years of general surgery there. After that, I worked in surgical oncology in Apollo in Chennai, during which I prepped myself to make the move to the UK. So my initial job here that started last year was as a clinical research fellow in HPB surgery. I've been with Barts Health in London in my 2 years here. So initially I was in a research fellow job, which was basically 50% of on-call work, which is in general surgery, and the other 50% was dedicated to research in Queen Mary University of London. After that, I've just recently started as a senior clinical fellow in renal transplant and vascular access, and yeah, that's where I am at the moment. I've been in the non-training pathway, sort of exploring that side of things rather than step into training like Talha. These pictures just show the very big, wonderful hospital that I work in on your bottom right corner. We've got a helipad, very fancy, and it's called the Royal London Hospital. The other pictures essentially show me at my MRCS graduation ceremony. That's Mr. Tim Mitchell. He's the RCS England president. And the last one is of Barts Cancer Institute, where I did a lot of my research work. So moving on to the actual session. Oh, sorry, forgot about this slide. So this basically just captures mine and Talha's journey, starting from the halls of Interact. This was, I think, after one of the quizzes that we conducted as a part of Chirurgia. I don't know if Chirurgia is still a thing. Cutting Edge, is it still a thing?
It's actually not.
Oh God. So Chirurgia used to be our annual sort of symposium kind of festival kind of, I don't even know what to call it, but it was just basically 2 days of us conducting events to engage cutting edge members, and this quiz was also a part of Kairogia. So this was back in, I don't know, 2020, I want sorry, not 2020, 2018 maybe, I can't remember the exact year, but
2014.
2014, no, that can't be right.
Yeah.
Shit, okay, that far away.
Looks like, yeah. Mm.
So yeah, so basically from 2014 teaching in the halls of Interact, Talha and I ended up meeting each other in Manchester Surgical Skills Center to teach the basic surgery skills course there. So it's been a long and rewarding journey, and we hope that we can help a lot of people fulfill this journey just like we have. So before we actually decided to have this talk and conducted it, we thought we would get the cutting edge team who've been very nice about this to ask you guys what the questions that you have about the whole UK surgical pathway are. And from the questions that I think there were about 25 to 30 questions, all of which were very excellent questions. We sort of got these five key questions that were raised by you guys that sort of fell into one of these categories. And the first of which is, what is the actual pathway? Like, how do you get into the UK once you've made a step in that direction? And I know there's a lot of information about the different routes through which you can enter the UK. The most famous of which are PLAB and MRCS. So you guys had a lot of questions about how exactly PLAB works and how you can go about clearing the PLAB exams. What are the steps that come after that? And similarly, you had some questions about the Royal College exams as well. And there were also a lot of questions focused about portfolio preparations. Portfolio is a very fancy word that these guys here in the UK use, which essentially means your CV. So you wanted to know what parts of your CV you can work on during med school to make your application stand out in the UK to UK employers, to the NHS trusts. And finally, you guys wanted to know what was so attractive about the UK. Why do people want to pursue a surgical career in the UK? What are the advantages and disadvantages of the same, if you may? So we will try to answer most of these key questions through this session, and of course, we will open the floor in the end for you guys to ask us more questions, and I'm sure you will have a lot of questions. So, what do we already know about the UK? So I'm just opening the floor a little bit here to you guys to sort of understand how much you know about basic UK training pathway to get into the UK from med school. What do you guys already know? Can somebody tell me what you think are the paths to get into the UK? I'm just asking this to get an idea about how much you guys are already aware of. Any
Yeah,
volunteers?
Anushka.
I feel for the most part, I'm not speaking for everyone here, but at least for myself, I'm aware of the terminologies, especially the ones that you had mentioned when you had shown lab, MRCS, portfolio, and the fact that these are things that need to be ticked. But there was a word that was used, that was know-how. I think that's the main question. Like, we know that these exist,
Okay.
but for example, application procedures, where do you go about registering for these things? How do you prepare for them? And the exact how to go about the process, the flow chart is, I think, at least for myself, where I'm a little wonky at, and
Okay.
I think other people here.
Fair enough. I think this would be a very prevalent sentiment among you guys. So the starting of any sort of career progression or career entry into the UK is something called GMC registration. So GMC is the General Medical Council, which is the body that governs all of the doctors in the UK, that sort of grants them their license and also revalidates them every once in a few years. So GMC is basically like your state medical councils in India. So your first job would be to somehow get the GMC registration. And to get GMC registration, you have multiple paths. These multiple paths are as follows. First is the PLAB route. So there's a lot of terminology shift that is happening now. PLAB was the exam that was conducted by the GMC for people who have just finished med school and an internship to get into the UK. But now it's becoming, very variegated in that some people refer to it as something called UK MLA, but the concept is the same. So you, through PLAB, you finish your med school, then you can give a test which is called PLAB 1 after completing your English language requirements, which are your IELTS or your OET. Once you're done with IELTS OET, you apply for PLAB 1, which is an MCQ based exam, and then after that you get your GMC registration after you've completed the PLAB route. So that's one path. The other most commonly taken route is the Royal College exam route. So the Royal College exams are considered as equivalent to postgraduate qualifications. So your postgraduate qualifications from India are unfortunately not recognized in the UK for you to get GMC registered with them. So you have to write one of these Royal College exams, which are conducted by Royal College of Surgeons, Royal College of Physicians, Royal College of Anesthetists, and all of that, to get registered with the GMC through that path. The other route is the MTI or sponsorship route, and also the MCH, which kind of overlap with each other. So these are when you get one of the Royal Colleges to sponsor you, and through them get a GMC registration without having to write any exam. This is principally based on your CV and whatever qualifications that you have from back home. So through these, you get sponsorship for your GMC registration from whatever Royal College it is, and also get them to sponsor your visa to the UK. The only caveat with this pathway is that while you get GMC registered, while you get an NHS trust to give you a job based on the MTI, which is Medical Training Initiative, you have to return to your home country within 24 months of you starting that post. The visa runs out at that point of time. And you will get a certificate saying, you've completed the MTI, so go back essentially. So this MTI was started as a pathway for international medical graduates to get into the system of the NHS, understand it, pick up a lot of innovations that happen here, pick up a lot of good things that happen in this medical system and take it back to wherever they are from, to enforce these there. So you have to return. That's the only caveat of the MTI or sponsorship pathway. The other two pathways give you a full GMC license to practice. All right. So let's delve a little bit more into the Royal College route. So your primary medical qualification is an absolute must when you talk about any of the pathways into the UK. This primary medical qualification is nothing but your MBBS degree. And you need to have completed your final exams before you try to set foot into the UK through any pathway. Luckily for us, our medical school, KMC Manipal, is recognized by the GMC. Therefore, our primary medical qualification is recognized, but we still have to get it EPIC certified, which is quite similar to the USMLE process as well. So once we've got our primary medical qualification ready and EPIC certified, we have to get our IELTS or OET achieved. IELTS or OET, it doesn't matter which exam you take, as long as you get a score above 7 on IELTS. I'm not entirely sure about the scoring system with the OET because I didn't take it, but there are defined numbers that we have to achieve in these tests. After that, you have to get into the MRCS route. So the MRCS is an exam that's conducted by the Royal College of Surgeons. There are 4 Royal Colleges all over the UK. Royal College of Surgeons of England, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Ireland. So these colleges conduct these exams as a sort of postgraduate qualification. They are not a degree, but they serve the purpose of getting you into the GMC register. So these are 2-part exams. Part A is again an MCQ test, and Part B is an OSCE. So we can cover a little bit more about these exams, but I want to cover the pathway first so that we get that sorted out. So once we've successfully achieved MRCS Part A and Part B, which together amount to more than about £1,800 of expenditure, which is a lot of money, you can apply to get GMC registration. Once your GMC registration is sorted, your only job left is to apply for surgical jobs here, which can include, which basically you can apply for non-training jobs in the UK. The other path is the PLAB pathway. So in the PLAB pathway, the first step is for you to again finish your primary medical qualification, which means finish your degree exam, your final exam, following which you need to give the IELTS or the OET. Again, the same yardsticks apply to these as well. Once you're done with IELTS, OET, and you've passed your final exams, you can give the PLAB 1 exam, which is an MCQ exam of 180 questions. It's what this means, what this now aligned with the UK MLA requirements means is that before, about when we were moving to the UK about 5-6 years ago, the PLAB was separate only for international medical graduates, and the local graduates had to not give another exam, but essentially qualify for GMC registration based on a separate curriculum. So what has happened now is that the curriculum for PLAB and the local graduates has become the same. It's not that the exam has changed in any way. It's just that the curriculum has been merged for both UK graduates as well as international medical graduates. So you are all competing at the same level, and you can't have people tell you that, you know, PLAB is an easy exam, so you guys are coming in easily. That's not the case, because the UK MLA is given by UK medical graduates as well. So you give PLAB 1 during your internship, and after that you give PLAB 2 once you've completed your internship. So for you to get GMC registered through the PLAB, you need to have completed a foundation program or an internship that is recognized by the UK. Our internship in India is recognized by the UK, which is why it's always advisable for you to give the PLAB 2 once you've completed your internship. Once that's done, you just need to upload your PLAB 2 results, and you will be offered a GMC registration with a full license to practice. And following that, you apply for junior level jobs in the NHS, which can be training, which can be non-training. That again depends completely on you. The only thing that you have to remember here is that make sure you apply for the PLAB once you've finished your internship, because otherwise it becomes a little tricky, because you have to take a gap during your internship, and that will complicate things with your GMC registration. So make sure you finish your internship before you give your PLAB 2. And luckily for us, our internship is completely recognized by the UK. If the internship is not recognized by the UK, unfortunately, you're going to have to repeat your foundation program in the UK, but you will not be subject to any of that. So after passing PLAB, you've got a couple of options. The first of them being that you apply for non-training jobs. Once you apply for non-training jobs and manage to secure a job, you can use this to your advantage in that you can gain NHS experience, because All things said and done, working in the NHS is very, very different from working in India. And you need to have, give yourself a certain time of leeway before you get comfortable with the system. Everything from how you order blood tests to how you speak to patients is very different. So you need to get used to the system. So I feel that it's a good option for you to get into a junior non-training job, gain some NHS experience, and continue to work in a non training job until you get into their recognized training pathway. The other option is that you can definitely apply to training posts directly, but you need to have 12 months of post internship experience and get something called a CREST form sign. So this basically tells you that you have achieved enough competencies to be on par with a UK medical graduate. Following this, you apply to different specialties. So I'm going to hand it over to Talha to cover the MSRA now. Apologies. Talha, you want to take over?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Aditi. So, there might be a lot of students who essentially want uh, direct entry into the training pathway into UK, and they don't want to do PG in India, or they don't want to start with their PG career by giving NEET exams and things like that. So, MSRA is one such route which I think everyone should know about. And if I knew about MSRA, I wouldn't have done PG in India. That's what I mean, I got to know about this very late after I've joined here. So, MSRA is essentially the training pathway for the UK students and even for foreign students, for them to directly enter into a training recognized or a UK recognized training program. Now, it's essentially an exam which is free of cost to give. Right, you can register for this exam, and it's a two-part exam, which would come up in the next slide. It's essentially a two-part exam, which the first part being testing your general knowledge and things like that, and the second part is something where they test your situational awareness and your, your empathy and things like that. So UK, as such, gives a lot of importance to the non-technical bits of things, which I think now the Indian medical curriculum is also including, where they test your leadership, they test your empathy, they test your communication, etc. And essentially, they test you on these non-operative skills or your non-technical skills, right? So this part B, or the second part of the MSRA exam, deals with such questions which essentially are situational based and situational awareness, where you cannot really study for it. It depends on what your ethical answers are, what your ethical issues are in regards to answering these questions. So this is a very good sort of entry point directly into the training pathway into the UK. And if I, like I mentioned, if I knew about this, I wouldn't have done PG in India. I think the slide, it's already mentioned on the slide that there are only certain number of specialties which use or recognize the MSRA exam for you to enter into training directly, rather than you sort of going beating around the bush and doing some non-training posts and essentially doing an observership, because observership is something else which is recently a fashion, a trend among a lot of IMGs. And as you can see, core surgical training is one such pathway where you can enter directly into surgical training as a first year postgraduate or a first year, surgical resident, where you can just directly run through the program and you are recognized as a trainee, you see. So there are different of them. There are different sort of subjects which do come under the umbrella of MSRA. One of them being psychiatry. There is internal medicine. There is ophthalmology. There's a lot of pad about people trying to just enter into GP training, and GPs have a very chill life. You see, you just do 3 years of GP training, and you get called a consultant, and you are essentially your primary contact care. So it's essentially doing a community medicine job, but you get paid higher. So essentially, that's what it is. So this is, again, I thought it's really important to put in this slide, because uh, some of a lot of aspirants would not want to do NEET PG and don't want to waste time and directly enter into their desired field. And this exam, which is again free of cost to take, but it is a difficult exam and it's really competitive, you can enter into the field of choice that you want, essentially. So I thought it's important or pertinent that I put this slide. Uh, right. Aditi, if you can move on to the next one. So this again is just explaining to you or telling you about the different aspects of this exam, where the first part is essentially an MCQ based exam, and the second part is what I told you about the situational excuse me, situational awareness that they look into. Um, right. Let's move on. Okay. So I think this terminology is again very important to clarify, because everyone, or people who do enter into the UK, their aim is to enter into a training post or a training pathway, right? A non-training job or a non-trainee is essentially somebody who is there for service provisions. You're here to essentially fill the rota gaps and uh, to be, not to put it lightly, but to do donkey work. You get paid, but essentially you're not progressing in life. You're not reaching up to what your end goal is, and the end goal is essentially to become a consultant, isn't it? So this is essentially a slide which tells you the difference. A junior doctor, essentially, as Aditi explained to you, foundation training would be somebody who has done internship, who tries to get into core training, which is the MSRA route, which I have just explained to you in the previous slide, and tries to enter into a training program or a training pathway, subsequently moves on to a higher specialty training, and then you get awarded something called as a CCT. Now CCT is essentially your certificate of completion of training, which essentially recognizes you as a consultant. Now I need to put this or clear this sort of misconception as well, that people who do have CCTs granted from UK are recognized as consultants all over the world. The only place where they aren't recognized as a consultant is unfortunately in India, because India has they do get recognized, but you still have to sort of put in your efforts and CV and essentially go up the ladder, because CCT is one such degree that is universally recognized. And you, if your pathway or if your aspirations are not to stay in India, then you can essentially have that flexibility of moving anywhere across the world. Again, US is another country that doesn't sort of recognize this, because they have their own sort of USMLE pathway and their American board and things like that. But if it's not in these two places that you don't see your future in, then it is definitely a very good sort of route to consider, because at the end of that program, you get awarded a CCT, and you don't have to worry about actually working or staying in the UK. You can be flexible, moving to different areas and countries. Now, a non-trainee is going to struggle reaching a CCT pathway, you see, because a non-trainee is not on the training route to reach CCT. Now, he essentially, if Aditi, if you go on to the next slide, he essentially, or he or she essentially, is trying to get that recognition of a CCT via something called as a Caesar pathway. Now, a Caesar is somebody who is essentially trying to explain to the GMC and explain to the Royal College that I am as competent enough as a UK trained trainee at the end of 7 years. So you might have had umpteen number of experience or umpteen number of years of experience in India. You might have been a consultant in India, but unless you prove to the GMC that you are equivalent to a seventh year or an eighth year UK trainee graduate, you are not going to be awarded a Caesar program or a Caesar degree. Now, it's like I usually give this example. It's like MCH and DNB, right? Both of them are recognized degrees, and both of them are sort of recognized, but people do still look down upon DNB. I don't know why. It's now counted as equivalent, is exactly how Caesar and CCT is. Like both of them are counted as same, but the amount of work you have to do, the amount of paperwork you have to submit to the GMC, the amount of logbook building and portfolio building that you have to do to essentially prove to the GMC that I am as competent as your trained eighth year medical sort of, postgraduate or an eighth year trainee, is going to be far more difficult, because the GMC is going to pick out on small things that, oh, you haven't done this or you haven't done that. Whereas they know, or the onus lies on the college and the GMC to physically train that trainee, because that trainee is their baby, you see. They have a right to train their baby and make sure that that baby reaches the final stage without any hiccups, without any obstacles, and gets to their CCT. So essentially, there is no difference, but the amount of work you put in through CSER is going to be far more difficult compared to a person who enters into CCT. Now, that doesn't mean that non-trainees don't get their CSER or they don't get the CSER recognition. It's just that it is not time bound. You see, like for example, I know I'm a trainee that at the end of my I have 3 more years left. So at the end of my third year or my 3 years, I will definitely get my CCT. Whereas somebody who is a non-trainee, he or she is not time bound. It could take him 10 years, it could take him 8 years, it could take him 15 years, depends on the evidence that he submits to the GMC and the evidence that the GMC accepts. So essentially, your ultimate goal is to reach to that pathway, which is CCT or CSER. It can be either way if you want to go through the CSER pathway or the CCT. The main reason why I wanted to tell you or wanted to speak about this slide is to tell you the main difference between the two. Okay, let's move on, Aditi. Next and next. So this is essentially a slide telling you how difficult it is getting nowadays to get into a training program. Now, it is quite a challenge. Obviously, there is a lot of backlash from the UK medical graduates as well about, them not getting a job because there's a lot of competition from IMGs, but we can't help it because IMGs are smarter than them. I'm telling you that, and we are a step ahead of them, and we can't really control this. But my point being that you cannot take this as a negative or a backlog, because it doesn't mean that the doors are entirely closed. You see, the doors are always open, but the competition ratios are getting tougher and tougher every year. Last year, as you can see, I'm just going to focus on core surgical training. Last year, in 2024, we had about 645 seats in surgical training, and the number of applicants who had applied was about 3,000. Now that's about 5 people applying for that one seat, you see. Now, this year it's obviously gone up. This year it's even worse. Your core surgical training, there are about 5,000 applications. It's almost multiplied. And even though the number of posts have gone up ever so slightly, the competition ratio is still 9 people applying for one job or one seat. Now that doesn't mean that you are at a disadvantage. It honestly depends on how your personal portfolio is and how your CV building is, because here in the UK they do not care about whether you've scored distinction, whether you're failed, whether you have gotten first class or second class. They absolutely don't care. It honestly depends on what the other extracurricular stuff that you've done. Okay, how many audits have you done? How many research projects have you done? How many presentations have you done? That's all they care about. So they don't care. Even if you're giving the PLAB exam, they're not going to care if you've gotten 170 out of 180 questions right. They absolutely don't care. They essentially look at the other things, which are your extracurriculars, your uh, extra academic stuff that you do. Not they don't want booky nerdy people, but they also want people who are a holistic individual who can be a good surgeon or a good doctor at the end of it. So let's move on. Next slide. Now, again, this is not to sort of discourage you guys. It just tells you the number of competition there is. Again, it's just a reiteration. There is a 60% rise in the number of applications just compared from 2024. It's further tougher, getting tougher. You do need to have full GMC limit registration, and there's obviously a limitation in the number of applications that are there. Now, let's go on to the next slide again. If you click again, Aditi. Now, this is again just to tell you how us Indians still contribute a major force to the NHS. We still have 60,000 people, second highest in the NHS after the whites and after the Brits, who are a major contributor to this service. And that again tells you that we can do our welcome. We are welcome, and we can get access and entry into it. It just depends on how you mold yourself and build yourself personally and professionally to get into the system. And it just shows you this little graph that's just going steeply upwards, that the Asian number of people who have gone up. It has gone up. Obviously, after Brexit, the number of EU people has declined, but Asian population, especially Indian and Pakistanis, they really do contribute a major workforce. And I'm proud to say that Indians are the second in nationality wise in the NHS workforce. Let's move on. So this is again a very important slide, I think. Go on, next one. What are the benefits? These are one of the questions that all of you had asked as to why the NHS, or why do you want to work in the UK. I can tell you, you have a very good work-life balance. you will have both professional and personal goal. Rather, it's not a rat race. You don't run behind that exam, or you don't run behind getting that 75% marks here. Everyone, works on work, building your professional and personal life. You do get good pay if you, especially if you compare yourself, or especially with the Indian rupee, which is at a massive decline now. You do get a handsome amount of money into your bank account. I don't think you'd save enough, especially if you're living in London, like Aditi, who's really
I
at
have no
the
savings,
height of
guys.
her
I'm
career.
just living paycheck to paycheck.
At the height of a career, but then it is good amount that you can earn and save. It's not a rat race. You do get rewarded for the work, so it's not that, if you've done if you're in India, if you've done something good, you barely could get a pat on the back. But then here you actually get rewarded. You feel nice that, okay, somebody is appreciating the amount of work that you've put in. I've worked about, let's say, 24 hours shift. You do get appreciated. You do get paid for the amount of money, that amount of work that you've put in. You do get, time off for the amount of work you put in. It's not that, when I was in India as a PG, I would do 24-hour shifts, and then the next day I would be expected to come and work. It's just that the mentality is so different, and if that's something you look after, or look out for, this is a very good sort of environment to be in. You do get access to, different benefits that the government provides. And the main sort of, I think, driving factor would be your mental health and your mental well-being. I'll tell you my personal experience that I do get a lot of time to spend, with my family, and essentially give time to my own personal sort of hobbies, and my sort of personal growth and careers and things like that. And you do get to travel, but that was essentially what was missing when I wasn't there. You see. Uh, so it is a good sort of work environment, and a good sort of place to be in. Aditi, if you'd like to add some merits of what you found.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just like to drive the differences, the key differences between how things are perceived in India and how you are perceived as a junior doctor in India as compared to the UK. So the reason why I personally decided to move like Talha is because I was getting burnt out. I was liking the job. I love surgery, but there is a point until which you can force yourself to stay at work, beyond which you realize that I don't have a personality outside of work. And that is the main reason why I worked to get to the UK. And now I do work in a very busy department. I do have nights where I absolutely cannot get any sleep. End up doing 2 transplants a night. It's not very easy as a job, but at the end of that, you know that, okay, whatever extra amount of work that you're doing, if your shift is from 8 to 8, but you end up staying until 11, you can get paid for those extra 3 hours. And any extra work that you take on your days off, again you get payment for that, which is not something that I've ever seen in any system that I worked in India, which is very good because it motivates you to get up the next day and go to work. So I feel that respect for your time is something that I found a very big merit of working in the UK to be. And of course, you get time to work on yourself, you get time to spend with your family. uh, you're not running from time. And I feel that's a very big reason why people want to move to the UK. Of course, the quality of life in the UK is better, standard of living is higher, and you do get a decent amount of pay for the amount of effort that you put in. So all of these points are very important when you make a decision to move to the UK. That being said, there are definitely some things that are challenging about this system. Like when I first came here, I didn't understand a lot of technicalities. You have to jump through a lot of bureaucratic hoops, stuff that you wouldn't have to deal with in India. Starting from how you address a patient, how you speak to a patient, it's all very different. Because in India we see so many patients over a very small span of time, you end up not developing that personal connect with the patient. But that is extraordinarily important here. So you need to adjust to a very different system. So that is a very big demerit. But I feel that is a demerit only in the initial phase, and you'll sort of mold your way of thinking a little bit more differently the more time goes by. Scarcity of jobs is something that we are seeing uh, worsen by the day. unfortunately, because of the fact that competition ratios, as Thala covered, competition ratios are for training posts, but even for non-training posts, because there are so many people who want to come into the UK because of the various merits that we explored, the lack of job and the mismatch between the number of applicants and the number of jobs available is just on the rise. And secondly, your government does not have too much funding to keep increasing the number of posts, or I don't know what exactly the political situation there is, but the conclusion to that is that you don't have too many posts, and because of that you are stuck searching for a job for a prolonged period of time in a lot of situations. Cost of living is very high if you're living in London. London is an extreme is it's in fact the most expensive city in the entire world. Maybe close competition is New York, but London is extraordinarily expensive. I know that because I pay £4 for my morning coffee, which I still cry about every day. But that being said, if you're in other smaller cities, or if you go to your tier two cities, you get paid much better than you get paid in London, and you can save a lot of money because the cost of living is not so high. Of course, you don't have the vibrant life that you have in London, but it's still a good compromise, I feel. Increasing competitiveness. What I mean by this is that you're not competing like you're competing in a NEET exam. NEET is a different ballgame altogether. You're just studying, mugging stuff up, and trying to vomit all of that in the exam and see who comes first from all of that. But here, the competitiveness is more day to day than that. You have to outshine your peers at every point of time. You have to network beyond your expectations. You have to make sure that everybody knows who you are. And that can get a little exhausting after a point of time, because without that you don't progress in your career. Whether you're in a training job or in a non-training job, you need to put yourself out there and you need to compete on a day-to-day basis. And one more sort of complicating factor when it comes to this is that there are people of different caliber applying for the same job. So there can be somebody who's finished their post graduation in India, who's worked in a surgical job for like 4 to 5 years. They will still be applying for an SHO job. An SHO is the junior most job in the UK. Some job that you, as a medical student, after you finished your PLAB, can be eligible for PLAB, or your whatever exam route that you take. You can be eligible for that, but somebody with much more experience than you in that particular field will be applying for the same job, and some trusts favor that because that's like cheap labor for them. Somebody who knows the work, who's willing to work at a lower level than what they are used to, and you end up paying them lesser than what they should be paid for their experience. Separation from family or support system. Of course, you will have to be alone. You will have to deal with the daily anxieties of independent living by yourself. Of course, if you've got a significant other, you can definitely bring them along. But that being said, you do feel very alone because there is no community for you here. Because you can build your community, but a lot of the lifestyle is very different. You've got to do everything by yourself. I mean, I clean my house, which is something that I've never done in all the years that I lived in India. So balancing all that with work can get a little challenging. And finally, there is a bit of an anti-IMG stance that's starting to come up. Tala also covered this briefly. People are getting quite pissed off that there are a lot of IMGs coming into the system, that they are subjectively and objectively better than them, and therefore stealing their training posts. All of that exists, but I feel you need to be a horse with blinkers when it comes to things like that. People are going to say a lot of shit. If you're good enough, you will get ahead, is the kind of mentality that you have to create for yourself when you come here. But it's very important that you have that mentality, otherwise you can get shook very easily. Tala, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever Aditi mentioned is right. The only thing I would like to say, correct on, is that yes, there is competition. You have to outshine your peers, but then you're not trying to outshine here knowledge, or you're not trying to outshine their marks or ranks. You're essentially trying to outshine everything academically that you do, which is quite difficult for us, especially coming in from an Indian background, where we try to outshine based on knowledge. Right?
Mm.
Okay, I would like to get 75 marks, and he has gotten 70 marks, so I've outshined him. That's essentially something that's been ingrained upon us since we've started med school or in Indian education or CBSE and things like that. But here, what Aditi meant by outshine others means that they, the whites and the other people who are actually working here, outshine us in everything else, especially with their communication skills, their audit skills, their their skills of team building and leadership. That they really outshine. So that's when you us as IMGs find it really difficult to compete with them on these extra sort of knowledgeable or extracurricular activities where we sort of slightly linger behind, but it is definitely possible and achievable, is what Aditi was trying to also convey, and I'm trying to convey as well. Right. So let's move on. This is again a brief slide about the key differences between the UK and Indian medical career. Obviously, as Aditi mentioned, UK entry pathway is a Royal College exam or a PLAB-based exam. India, it's NEET that's been taken over. Training structure is majority competency based, right? It's a structured competency based exam, whereas in India, it's more of get the best marks, you get the best seat, and it's essentially now caste based, seniority based. I'm not going to dwell into other things now with the political issues behind that. Competition is especially high in specialties, but the same so applies in India, isn't it? Everyone dies to get into radiology or dermatology, or if it's a super specialty program, it's surgical gastro. So it is both high. Work life balance, absolutely, it's really good in UK, where it's extremely poor in India. But later on, it does improve. If obviously if you're a radiologist or dermatologist, you're going to have good work life balance. Now, workload, we follow something called as the European Working Time sort of directive. I never heard of something called as European Working Time directive until I came here, where you are only allowed to work 40 hours a week. If you work more than 40 hours a week, you get paid for even a single minute that you do, which is essentially what Aditi mentioned. It gives you an incentive, isn't it, that you'd like to come and work the next day, because I stayed for an hour. I got paid 90 pounds or whatever per hour for that 1 hour I stayed. It essentially gives you a motivation and inspiration to sort of go the next day. I'm like, yeah, I don't mind working for the 42nd hour. Whereas in India, you could be working like a donkey for for the past 24 hours, and next day you'd still be told off saying that, oh, you haven't sent this blood sample for testing. So essentially, it's a lot of where negativities, where you don't get rewarded for the amount of work that you put in, and people don't really admire the amount of hard work and pressure. And I can personally tell you, and Aditi can personally tell you from her experience, because we've gone through the system, and I've gone through the whole PG life, and how the struggles are. Again, now this is again, I think Aditi yesterday mentioned that this is should be a correction. You do still get called a consultant at the end of 3 years of PG life. You might be a senior resident, but you're still a consultant. But what sort of senior resident is comfortable doing a laparotomy skin to skin, or a laparoscopic cholecystectomy skin to skin? It honestly depends on the hospital that you worked in and how good a consultant you are. Because if you are a consultant, you should be able to manage everything. But I, as an SR, would still run to my consultant if I did have any trouble when I was working as a PG, when I was working as an SR in KMC, you see. So you still get the tag of the consultant post that you are, or as a consultant you are, but how sort of efficient you are, or how sort of functional you are with that consultant tag, is really questionable. And that same duration is about 7 to 8 years in about UK, where they run you through these different competencies which you have to clear. So you actually become a holistic consultant at the end of it, with where you'd be able to manage everything and anything. So that's essentially what I'm trying to get at. You still can call yourself a consultant at the end of 3 years, but are you really that consultant that people expect you to be? That is a real question, you see. So if you want to move on, and another next. Now, ultimately, it all depends on what your long-term goals are. You see, if you wish to settle in India, then this looks really nice and sparkly. If you don't wish to settle in India, then obviously this looks like something that's you are against.
No, just a reiteration of this basically. people can say whatever they want to, but everything being said, the reason why you're here is because you're good, not because of anything else, not because the UK government is recruiting IMGs at mass levels. That's all not true at all. You competed with other people, and you got here because you were good. So don't let anybody take that away from you. Get all the negative media,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and just do what you have to do to get ahead in your life. You are not. One thing I just wanted to say is that you are not valuable to this system just because you are willing to work harder or faster or whatever. You're valuable because you're actually good. That's the start and end of it. So yeah, I mean that's just what I wanted to convey. But I think we're quite happy to take questions because we've been speaking one direction for way too long, I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adithi. Thank you so much, Dr. Talha. And I would like to really thank both the speakers for such a detailed presentation. I'm sure it's helped everyone that has attended this talk. And now that we've heard from both our speakers, as both our speakers had mentioned, we're opening the floor for questions from the participants. Participants, please feel free to ask questions by either typing them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and unmute yourself, and we will take them one by one. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think while people are putting in a chat box, I think there was one question which what we didn't answer was portfolio building. I would definitely work on your portfolio building from the first year of med school, or at least from the second year of med school, because it is a lot of things that you can add to your CV which they really value. So things like, if you've ever gotten a publication opportunity. I remember in my second year community medicine, they used to take us to these villages and make us do all this project. So try and get involved in that project, and then publish it, so you get a not free publication, but you get a publication that you worked on, adds to your CV. And things like your audits, things like you've done some teaching, you've done different sort of courses, like your BLS course, or your cardiac skills, what is that called, ALS course, and things like that. So it essentially, anything which is going to support your, exactly, which is going to support your CV, is will be counted rather than just your marks. They don't care about your marks. They care about, okay, whether have you done BLS, or have you done ACLS, or have you done teaching, what was, how many people did you teach, what was the topic, and things like that. So these are certain things that you can build upon. And being a part of Cutting Edge, I think that was a major driving force for me. I used me being a part of Cutting Edge, and me being a part of the Cutting Edge Club, to demonstrate my leadership skills and my teaching skills. So these are certain things that you have to start working upon from the first year of your medical school, because you can't reach internship and expect to cover a lot of these things, because it's a slow and gradual sort of addition to your CV on a daily basis.
Definitely, yeah. I feel one thing that I personally didn't do a lot of in med school was building my portfolio, because I started off in CBSE, and all through my life I've been told you have to get good marks. So I worked on getting good marks, and that didn't leave me time to do much else with my life. So I don't have too many publications, I don't have too many audits, I don't have any projects that I've worked on. Apart from Cutting Edge, my CV was fairly blank at the end of med school. So I had to double up my efforts after med school to achieve all of that. And the good thing is that you all study in KMC Manipal. KMC Manipal is a school that helps you in portfolio building so much. It goes out of the way. It doesn't have to be that way, because I studied my postgrad in Madras Medical College, so I know exactly how much those kids have got from their college, which is essentially nothing. So Manipal provides you with very fantastic services, fantastic teachers. So make sure you use all of that. Sign up to publish at least a case report by the end of your internship, so that you have something to add to your portfolio at the end of it all. So make sure that you use Manipal well in that regard.
Um, uh, Ma'am, sir, we have a question in the chat box, which is what would be the approximate cost for the entire journey until getting the license to practice after completing our internship?
Talha, you wanna go for it or?
Yeah. Okay. So it depends on what exam you give. If you are giving a, if you're giving PLAB, that would come up to approximately 1,300, £1,400. I would give another £200 for your EPIC verification, another £100 for IELTS, and I think GMC now
And what?
takes 400.
400.
Yeah, 400. Yeah, £400 for you to be registered. So I would give it about 2,000 to £2,200 just for the administrative bits of things, but then obviously you'll need another thousand at least for sustenance and finding a place to stay, your first sort of area to live in, and food and things like that. So I think 1,200 is a good amount for your sustenance. But administrative wise, even if you give the MRCS, it would amount to about same 2,000 £2,500, which is
Yeah.
close to about £1 is about 120 rupees now. So yeah.
So the just to add on to that, just the parts that you have to pay money for. First, of course, is your EPIC verification, which comes before anything else to verify your primary medical qualification. So that costs you like whatever Tala said. Then the second is for your IELTS OET. Then for whichever exam that you take, the part one and part two of that exam, and then your GMC registration. So these are the things that you have to pay for. Apart from this, of course, you'll have to pay for your visa and then the actual cost of living here. But all that being said, it sounds like a very big number in terms of Indian rupees. You'll make all of that money in 1 month after coming here.
Yeah, easily.
So don't let the cost of it distract you from how good of an opportunity it is. Because I personally did
Absolutely.
undertake USMLE or PLAB after med school because I was worried about the financial aspect of it, which in hindsight I'm realizing is a very big mistake of mine because I was getting paid dirt while doing my postgrad in India. So don't let the cost of it distract you from getting you here.
Um, Sir, ma'am, I had a question myself. Throughout the
Hmm.
talk, you mentioned so many important things that we should do. You had mentioned the extracurriculars outside of just pure academics that we should pursue. Are there any activities which, say, they look at as redundant or you should not essentially waste your time in doing something along certain lines?
Um, I wouldn't.
Nothing's a waste if you're doing it for your
Yeah,
personal freedom. Yeah.
exactly. Because I feel that the thing about the UK is that you can spin anything to your advantage, right? So you might have just gone on an Asre visit and ate some chips and come back. But you can say I volunteered in this place and I did so much for these underprivileged kids. Not to say, I mean, not to sound insensitive, but I'm saying you can't put a spin on it like that. So there's nothing that you cannot spin to your advantage when it comes to your portfolio. You just need somebody to sign that off for you. Get a certificate from your ComMed HOD saying this individual has volunteered so much, or if SWC still exists, then they can help you a lot in terms of all of that. So
It does.
I would say nothing is a waste of time.
Okay, thank you
Absolutely.
so much. We have one more question in the chat box. What would be the advantage of pursuing surgery in the UK as compared to other countries like the US or Australia?
We can take turns answering this, Tala.
Okay. Right. So the advantage of getting a surgical field in the UK is that it is easier to get in compared to US. I believe that the training route of getting a surgical job in US is very competitive, extremely competitive, where they are. I've heard that they only sort of prefer green card holders or people who are actual citizens of the US. So if you can enter into medicine, and I have a lot of friends who have done medicine or who do go down the medical route where it does on pediatrics and cardiology and things like that. But then I've not heard of anyone who has gotten a surgical seat in the US because of the sheer competitive nature of it. I think our alumni from Cutting Edge, I think Vikas Sood or somebody
Because
had was the only.
it's
I think there was
Palas,
some person,
Palas in the
yeah,
US.
some person in from Cutting Edge who was our senior, 2 years senior, is the only person I've ever heard of who has gotten into surgery through the USMLE route because of the sheer competitiveness of it. So it's easier to get in. That is the first thing. And you do, I mean, the work-life balance is almost the same compared to US and UK.
Actually,
Uh,
no, just to sort of the work-life balance in the US is very similar to India.
yeah, that's one.
Don't have proper work timings. You are
Mm.
on call all of the time, especially if you're a first year intern or whatever they call it. Your work-life balance is going to be quite bad when it comes to the US. Sorry, I
And
cut you cut
no,
you.
that's fine. No, no, absolutely, that's right. And Australia, I don't have much information about this, but I've heard that it's getting very difficult as well in Australia because a lot of UK graduates, because they're not getting jobs here, are migrating to Australia to get jobs there. So it is getting a little competitive. But if you ask me, both UK and Australia would have an equal amount of competition to enter into a surgical field. US would be far more difficult to enter.
Yeah, so the thing about the US is firstly they have a clown of a president, so it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in the US. And this is going to be how things are moving forward. So what is the advantage of pursuing a surgical career in the UK compared to the US? It would just be that you get the same facilities, the same sort of standard of teaching and standard of resources, but at more relaxed levels. The second thing is Australia. Australia, for you to be anybody, not just an international medical graduate, to get into surgery in Australia is near impossible. You have to work as a resident medical officer for close to 6 to 7 years to prove that you are good enough to enter a surgical training pathway in Australia. It's not impossible, but it's not something that I would do when I have the UK as an option. All of these first world countries are very similar in the products that they create. It's just the differences in getting into their systems. So you would naturally gravitate towards the procedures which are more in your favor than undertake a journey just because it's the road less taken, you know, without actually knowing where you're going to end up at the end of it all. That's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you so much. We have one more question in the chat box that has come in. Can we practice in India if anyhow we wish to return in the future? And if so, do we need to get or give any separate exam for licensing in India?
You don't have to give any exam. Your while so what Talha meant by your CCT is not recognized here. It's not that you are not a consultant, but in India, like, you will be competing with consultants in the private sector who have already established their practice. So if I want to come back to India after doing colorectal surgery in the UK, I'm fully trained. I'm as good as them, but I won't have the level of patient following that they have. So I have to build myself up from scratch in that aspect of things. In terms of employability, you are good, if not better, because they see all these fancy foreign degrees and your corporates just want to load you up with cash. So getting a job in India is not going to be difficult. It's building your patient following after that that's going to be a little tricky, and you do not have to give any separate exam or licensing. You are welcome back.
Okay, thank you so much. A question from my side. You mentioned, sir, Dr. Talha, that a lot of doctors from the UK are migrating to Australia to practice. What countries? I'm sure like England, Scotland would be like the degree would be recognized, I believe. But in what all locations is the postgraduate training within the NHS, within the UK, recognized across the globe?
I mean, you mean to say if I've done CCT from UK NHS all over
Yes.
the world, all over
Okay.
the world? Yes. I think the only place where you can find some difficulty would be getting the US board to recognize you because they have their own American board certification. But it's the CCT or CSER that you get from UK is recognized all over the world.
So, for example, if I pursued, say, my core surgical training in the UK and then my specialist training also in the UK, I can then proceed to work outside the UK as well, like just for off the top of my head, somewhere, say, in the European Union or Australia or something like that, or only within like certain liaisons.
Anywhere, anywhere.
So your trick with the European Union would be the language,
That's
because
it. Yeah, but anywhere.
you need to learn the language. But your degree is recognized all over the world. In fact, except the US. In the
All
US
right.
also, it's quite easy for you to, if surgery is what you want to do, it's quite easy for you to get an FACS once you're CCT trained, because the general outlook, and I absolutely do not approve of this, but it's just the truth of the world today, is that people look at Western trained doctors in a much more different light than they look at uh, South Asian doctors. So once you've got a Western degree, it's like a shield or an armor for you. You can essentially move anywhere and be respected. It's not the way it should be, because Indian doctors are actually quite brilliant, but it's just how it works, unfortunately.
All right. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Um, Once more, I would just like to open the floor. If there are any more questions, please feel free to ask. We'll wait for a minute just in case somebody has any more questions.
Yep.
So, ma'am, if anything up on top of all the information that you've given, even though it's been so elaborate, and we really appreciate it. If there's anything further you would like to add, please feel free.
There's, I mean, there's nothing that I'd like to add, but apart from what I've already mentioned or what Aditi's already mentioned, is just that, don't get disheartened by the negative media that you hear about. It is definitely an option which you should consider, but ultimately it depends on where you'd like to see yourself in the future. If at all you'd like to see yourself working and staying in India, then uh, then this is like essentially something where it's going to take you a longer time to ultimately get settled back in India. But if your long-term goal is not to be in India, and if your long-term goal is not to stay there, or essentially having a good work-life balance, then you should definitely consider this as a surgical uh, option.
All right. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. Please go ahead. I'm so sorry.
nothing extra to add, just saying that uh, I know it's quite difficult sometimes at the end of med school to make a decision about all of this, because I was at a very similar crossroads. Even if you end up in the NEET rat race, don't worry about it, because the UK is a system that will let you come in at any point of time. So don't feel pressurized to make a decision about where you see yourself, because I know at the age of 21, you're not thinking that way. So give yourself time. You can get here and then you can still figure it out. Don't stress out too much about things.
So we have gotten one more question in the chat box. It says, I just wanted to know how similar the pathways would be if we were considering internal medicine or any other specialty instead of surgery.
So the Aditi, if you want to take it, I'm happy for you to take it.
Not particularly. I mean, it really differs for each specialty in small ways, but the overall process, the overarching process is always the same. The basic points that we covered, the pathways that we covered will be the same. If you want to do internal medicine, instead of core surgical training, you have something called IMT, which is internal medicine training, which you do, and then you get into higher medical training, whichever branches you want to get into. You will still have to write a Royal College exam there as well. It's the MRCP, which is in 3 parts instead of 2 parts. If you want to do ophthalmology, that's a different ball game altogether, in the sense that you have 4 exams that you have to clear. But the basic things that you have to cover are the same. Once you have that sorted out, you can then direct your energy in more specialty specific directions. If you want to do pediatrics, you have the Royal College of Pediatricians. If you want to do anesthesia, then you have the Royal College of Anesthetics. So for each of these specialties, you have their own Royal Colleges, and you have therefore their own exams. And because of that, there will be minor variations, but of course, the process is still the same.
Yeah, just to add a correction that this, if you want to enter IMT directly after your after your MBBS or after your internship, then the exam to enter into IMT via uh, yeah, if the exam to enter into IMT would be MSRA, that is to enter into core medical training. And then, yes, you do give your Royal College exams to enter into higher medical training, that like cardiology or gastroenterology or nephrology and things like that. But then if the Royal College exams is when, if you want to enter in the middle, like at an ST3 level and things like that, where you want to essentially tell them that you are equivalent to a postgraduate exam, then yes, you would give a Royal College. So Royal College exam is essentially a postgraduate exam. You have to understand that. So if you want to enter from the outset or from the first year, it will be an MSRA. Otherwise, if you want to enter directly into post-graduation or postgraduate sort of exam, then it will be a Royal College exam.
All right, thank you so much. So, with this, we come to the end of SurJourney. On behalf of Cutting Edge, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Adithi Shankar and Dr. Talha Ahmed for joining us today and for sharing their journeys here with us. A big thank you as well to all our participants for being such an engaged audience. We hope the session has inspired you to explore new opportunities and pathways that are available to you in surgical training. And with that, we wrap up today's session. Have a great evening ahead, and thank you so much for being a part of SurJourney. Thank you once again, Dr. Talha and Dr. Adithi.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Cutting Edge, for all.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Have a
Bye.
great day.
Cheers. Have a good one. Bye.